So it looked like the stream was interrupted momentarily, but it looks like it's okay. So I'm not going to do anything. And again, for those online, there's a couple of folks. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat window, or just to say hello. That'd be great. Tonight's sutta is the Agantuka Sutta, for all who reside in the Dhamma. And so the title, well, let me start reading it and I'll comment on that. Friends, I will teach you the value of developing direct knowledge and profound wisdom. Listen carefully. Suppose there is a guest house where people from all directions and all professions and positions take residence. What the Buddha is saying is that he teaches a Dhamma for everyone. And the reason why that's significant during the Buddha's time and continues to this day, during the Buddha's time, there was a very strict caste system. And most of India still lives within this caste system to a certain degree. But back then, if you were not of the proper level in society, you weren't allowed to hear any spiritual teachings. And certainly those that we would call the untouchables, it was not something that could be done. In fact, the teacher would likely be put to death. And the Buddha originally initially went through a lot of difficulty by simply saying this is Dhamma for everyone. And he taught the same Dhamma to, no matter what your social position was, it didn't matter to him. And he made that very clear in the way that he ran his sangha. Nobody was given preference just because you might have been, a prince or a king or a chariot driver or the lowest of the low. You were all the same. And that also relates to women eventually. There were some difficulties with women in the initial sangha, that only because the Buddha was concerned for their safety, but very quickly he allowed women into his sangha too, and gave them, they could take vows, which was significant. Doesn't really relate to the sutta, but that analogy is what the Buddha is referring to. Just like a guest house will take anybody that shows up, the Dhamma is for anybody who is interested. Buddha continues, in the same way, anyone who cultivates and methodically practices the Noble Eightfold Path will comprehend with direct knowledge and profound wisdom whatever phenomena are to be comprehended with direct knowledge and profound wisdom. So the Buddha is teaching us that he taught an eightfold path so that we can have direct knowledge and develop profound wisdom. In other words, it's not something that we take on faith. There's nothing that the Buddha taught that is faith-based or that we engage with through blind faith. He teaches that it is through direct experience that we come to know the Dhamma, and no other way. Furthermore, they will abandon whatever phenomena are to be abandoned through direct knowledge and profound wisdom. And the Buddha explains what that is to be abandoned. Furthermore, they will experience whatever phenomena are to be experienced through direct knowledge and profound wisdom. He's teaching us that using the framework of the Eightfold Path keeps us focused in the proper direction and within the proper context. We'll know what is not useful as Dhamma practice, and we'll know what it is to be experienced. And he doesn't even leave that up to any type of guessing or faith. He tells us directly in a few more lines. Furthermore, they will develop whatever phenomena are to be developed through direct knowledge and profound wisdom. Again, direct knowledge and profound wisdom. All by developing and integrating the Eightfold Path as the framework for our Dhamma practice, and nothing else. In which phenomena are to be comprehended with direct knowledge and profound wisdom? The form aggregate, the feeling aggregate, the perception aggregate, the mental fabrication aggregate, and the consciousness aggregate. Everybody knows what those are? What? Yeah, the five clinging aggregates, which the Buddha describes as the ongoing personal experience of suffering. That's all it is. The terms are somewhat unfamiliar, and clinging them together is often difficult at first, but it simply describes the nature of suffering. Through form, through perception, through feeling, through perceptions, through mental fabrications, and consciousness, meaning ongoing thinking rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And if you look at yourself within this context, you'll see that that's you. You self-identified with this form. You describe your life by way of what you're feeling. I had a lousy day. I had a great day. And that leads to perceptions on your day and your life, which leads to the formations of fabrications, doesn't it? And those fabrications support this ongoing thinking rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, simply by that feedback loop that the Buddha described in the Nagara Sutta that we talked about on Saturday and it often referred to. We're simply stuck in this loop of wrong views reverberating within our own echo chamber, and we have no way of seeing that or realizing it because our beliefs would continually reinforce that. But the Buddha teaches that there's a way of recognizing that through a direct experience and abandoning, knowing what to abandon, meaning wrong views. The Buddha continues, these five clinging aggregates are the phenomena to be comprehended with direct knowledge and profound wisdom. The Buddha describes profound, awakened, fully mature right view using those same terms. Awakened right view is a view that fully comprehends, fully understands the nature of suffering, or the five clinging aggregates. And which phenomena are to be abandoned with direct knowledge and profound wisdom? Ignorance and craving for becoming further ignorant are the phenomena to be abandoned with direct knowledge and profound wisdom. Does everybody understand that? Because that's the heart of the Buddha's teaching. It is a lack of wisdom, a lack of understanding of the true nature of human life as taught as Four Noble Truths that results in all manner of confusion, deluded thinking, and ongoing disappointing experiences, unsatisfactory experiences, in a word, dukkha. And so it would make sense that what is to be recognized and abandoned is ignorance, isn't it? And why couldn't the Buddha just stop right there? Because he's really teaching us this is the teaching. This is what you must do. Because he understood that it is the nature of a mind rooted in ignorance to create very powerful and very subtle strategies to continue to ignore its own ignorance. Does that make sense to everyone? Because it sounds a little bit circular, but it really isn't. It's what we do. The distractions of the world and worldly entanglements provide just such a profound level of distraction that it does allow us to ignore our own ignorance. And that's true whether it's engaging in Facebook too much or Twitter, or simply engaging in practices that seem spiritual or religious in nature, but only serve to continue to ignore our own ignorance. And that's basically referring back to the Buddhist time, because it's really the same thing that's happening today. There were just those types of spiritual practices, so-called spiritual practices, that were designed to almost immediately continue your distraction and make you feel good, but no path to recognizing that the nature of your suffering was rooted in ignorance of the way things are. They continue to ignore our own ignorance. So what is to be recognized and abandoned is ignorance. Dependent origination, what the Buddha awakened to, states that from ignorance through 12 observable causative links results in all manner of confusion, delusion, and ongoing suffering. And the fabrications mentioned in the five clinging aggregates we begin our understanding through recognizing that the Buddha taught in dependent origination that it is ignorance as a requisite condition that results in fabrications. That's the foundation, those initial fabrications. We talked about this a few weeks ago with the meaning of fabrications. It's simply creating a conceptual view of ourself in relation to the world that is rooted in views that have no relationship to reality. They're fabricated. In the sutta that we cited a few weeks ago, Thanissaro Bhikkhu uses the word, the perversions, and that's a pretty good word, we decided, because we're perverting what is really occurring in the world, but insisting that it's real and insisting that it's us. Matt and I had a great conversation at lunch today about when these things come up, when stress or doubt or any of these hindrances come up, to simply remind ourselves, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. That's the Buddha's teaching on the Untitled Sutta that we go through every retreat, a few other times during the year. Again, the essence of the Dhamma is to recognize and abandon ignorance. Where does ignorance arise? Through self-referential views. And where do those self-referential views come from? from fabrications, from a lack of understanding of the way things truly are. The Buddha continues, and which phenomena are to be experienced with direct knowledge and profound wisdom, relating back to how he describes awakened right view. Knowledge with regard to stress and release from ignorance of Four Noble Truths are the phenomena to be experienced with direct knowledge and profound wisdom. It's clear and direct, isn't it? The Buddha is teaching us in completely unambiguous terms what we must do to awaken. And notice using the word phenomena. He's referring to even the parts of the Dhamma that are useful in developing awakening are themselves inherently impermanent. That's the meaning of phenomenon in worldly terms. Phenomena arises and passes away.
Talking about perception?
As one aspect of the five clinging aggregates, yes.
One aspect of phenomena?
Yes, and this is where the brilliance of the Buddha it shines through. He doesn't take us out of where we are as a Dhamma practice and put us in a place that has no relevance to human life or dukkha. He teaches a Dhamma that we become immersed in what's occurring in the results of our own ignorance. Why? The sutta teaches us so that we can recognize it. If the Buddha taught something that we could use to manipulate our own minds, which another word for that would be continued distraction, it would simply be another teaching like he studied and rejected during his time. Is that clear? And so this man who studied all of the great teachings of his time and mastered them very quickly, the suttas are clear about that, and in his own, and even his reference in the Nagara Sutta, had the courage to say, this is not it. It might have made me feel good. There was two great teachers during the Buddha's time, Alara Kalama and Udeka Ramaputta. I don't know why I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I remember those fellows' names. He mastered their teachings almost immediately in their so-called advanced meditation practices. And they both begged Siddhartha at the time, he's not yet the Buddha, to stay with him and represent them. And he could have immediately fallen back into the riches that he walked away from. He was a prince in his father's kingdom. But he realized, and he talked about those kind of diluted experiences as a confining space, something he was trying to move away from. So he had the courage to recognize that and continue seeking truth rather than falling into another distraction wrapped up in the robe of spirituality or religiosity. He didn't know what it was yet, but he knew what it wasn't. I'm not sure if I finished this. Knowledge with regard to stress and release from ignorance of Four Noble Truths are the phenomena to be experienced with direct knowledge and profound wisdom. Developing the Four Noble Truths, having a profound understanding of the true nature of human life, and recognizing and abandoning our own contributions to stress and suffering. And which phenomena are to be developed with direct knowledge and profound wisdom? This relates directly to how the Buddha describes an awakened mind, and it relates directly to using the only meditation method the Buddha ever taught, shamatha vipassana meditation. Calm, tranquil mind, supporting useful insight. And which phenomena are to be developed with direct knowledge and profound wisdom, a calm mind, and insight into the three marks of existence, are the phenomena to be developed with direct knowledge and profound wisdom. Again, the reference to phenomena also points to the fact that our Dhamma practice itself, no matter how well integrated, is always relating to the impermanence of our own experiences and the different perceptions and fabrications we form by that. And so as we find ourselves perhaps 3, 4, 5, 10 years within Dhamma practice, and we know that we're developing a profound understanding of what the Buddha taught, and we find ourselves momentarily, or maybe for a period of time, back in distraction, back in doubt, back in one of the hindrances. How does that relate to this? Because we know that that's temporary, it's impermanent. We know that it's not me. We know where we reside. Again, the Buddha taught this profound and really radical teaching, and still radical today. The Buddha was the greatest thinker and the most radical thinker of all time, continuing to today. And what he taught was a simple and direct way of uniting the mind and the body. Why? Because this is where life occurs. And it occurs nowhere else. It doesn't occur when my mind is objectified, meaning it's outside of my body now, stuck in the past, or reacting from past experiences and projecting that into the future. I'm not here. A mind united in the body is a mind that has developed that profound concentration founded in shamatha vipassana meditation and supporting the refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path, and to see things moment by moment from right view. This is not me, this is not mine, this is not who I am. And in that way, we continue moment by moment to be meaningfully engaged in our life. We're actually living our life, not waiting to live our life, not trying to fix ourselves so we can get to some point to live our life. The Buddha rejected all that silliness. He taught a way that any human being, at the beginning of the sutta, anyone who took residence in this house of the Dhamma could wake up in this human lifetime and live their life as their life unfolds. That's the secret. And it's not a secret. That's the greatest gift, isn't it? It's really what we all are looking for. We had a great discussion about this on Saturday too, about the different thought processes, but they're all leading to, there's something wrong with my thinking, or there's something lacking in my thinking, ultimately. A dissatisfaction of life is ultimately a dissatisfaction with our own type of thinking.
Whereas Jen said, my thoughts are wonderful.
Yes, and we become so enamored. It was great. We become so enamored with our thoughts. Why? Because they're our thoughts. They're all we have, really. And if I'm describing myself through my thoughts, through my views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, I can't help but be in love with them. They're me. They're my thoughts. And if you think about all the conflicts in the world, and I'm not just talking about right now, but the current climate is a great example of this, all conflicts in the world resulted from a position taking that my view is the right view. And in some extremes, it was taken even further to say my view is so right that I need to kill people that don't belong or that don't believe what I believe. And that's still going on today, isn't it? But yet, and not that we are inherently violent that way, but we tend to do that with people that don't coincide with our view, don't we? We find ways to make them wrong or belittle them in some way, rather than understanding from an awakened point of view the nature of ignorance, comprehending suffering at its most direct. The Buddha continues, and how does anyone who cultivates and methodically practices a Noble Eightfold Path through direct knowledge and profound wisdom comprehend appropriate phenomena, abandon appropriate phenomena, experience appropriate phenomena, and develop appropriate phenomena? That one paragraph is teaching us Dhamma practice, to recognize what's appropriate to develop and understand and what's appropriate to abandon. How do we do it? How does a mind rooted in ignorance, prone to ignoring its own ignorance, ever extricate itself from that feedback loop? The Buddha doesn't leave us hanging. Anyone who develops right view, dependent on seclusion and on dispassion and on cessation of ignorance, that results in release from wrong views. I got a really important question from an online student. He said, what do you mean by seclusion in reference to this? That is, what do we mean by seclusion? And it really has a few meanings in the right context. One meaning is the seclusion that we provide ourselves in a daily, hopefully twice daily meditation practice. We're secluding ourselves from the entanglements in the world in a direct way, aren't we? And we're having a direct experience. Every time we take to our cushion and put aside thoughts as they arise and come back to the sensation of breathing, we're developing seclusion from the world. Excuse me. In that moment, and for the length of period of time that we're meditating. But then as we integrate the Eightfold Path, and start changing our views from wrong view to right view, we are disentangling ourselves from the world. And in that way, it's ongoing seclusion. And in other suttas, the Buddha would call it a protected place or a place of safety, a true refuge. I don't know, I sometimes tell this story. In Hawaii, many, many, many years ago, before, well, not that much before we taught them how to live, there was all these little kingdoms on all the different islands, and they were always at war with each other. Each kingdom wanted to be the ruler of all the islands. And it literally wasn't until Kamehameha did unite all the islands. But during this time of a lot of war, they did a remarkable thing. They set aside areas of the islands, and many of them are still there, called places of refuge or cities of refuge. There's a beautiful one on a big island. It's actually two of them. And the idea was that if during a time of conflict, if you had enough, you just couldn't take it anymore, and you could make it to one of these places of refuge, you were left at peace until the conflict ended, and then you left. The catch was that these places of refuge were defended much like any other encampment. The one that I used to visit a lot was surrounded. It's this little lagoon that even to this day is surrounded by shark-infested waters. And the only way to get there, if it was protected, was to swim through those waters. But if you made it through the shark-infested waters, good metaphor for human life, isn't it? You were now protected. You had found a refuge. In that way, the Buddha is referring to seclusion as a place of refuge within our own minds. Once developed, it's ours forever, isn't it? And we can always take refuge there. We can always find seclusion. So the meditation method is both a practical experience of developing seclusion and metaphor for an awakened mind, isn't it? Okay. Through direct knowledge and profound wisdom, they develop right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation that is dependent on seclusion, dependent on dispassion, dependent on cessation that results in release from clinging to wrong views. Meaning that we have to develop what awakening is dependent on, isn't it? But it's not, the development of that is not something that is external to the Dhamma. It's through the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, that we develop those qualities of an awakened mind and learn what to experience and what to abandon. Buddha continues, in this way, anyone who cultivates and methodically practices the Noble Eightfold Path will, with direct knowledge and profound wisdom, comprehend phenomena to be comprehended, abandon phenomena to be abandoned, experience phenomena to be experienced, and develop phenomena to be developed. It's the end of the sutta. Thank you. A remarkable teaching, isn't it? That it really relates to the entire, like I say this almost every sutta, really relates to the entire context of the Buddha's teaching, but it's also very specific on how to practice and what we're doing in Dhamma practice. Any questions about the sutta before we go around the room?
Just like Frank kind of alluded to before, I found the use of the word phenomena a little different. I'm thinking phenomena is worldly things, but sometimes in those sentences, it sounds a little bit a different use of the word.
Yes, I would agree in that way. But the Buddha is also teaching us that our Dhamma practice itself is part of the three marks of existence, and that it is prone to even an understanding of the nature of suffering until we have completely developed the Eightfold Path. It's prone to arising and passing away. And I would bet everyone here has had experiences where they really feel like they understand the Dhamma and you understand the nature of suffering. And then maybe in the next breath, you feel like you lost it. Well, the Buddha is reminding us, what do we do then? He concludes by telling us, continue with the Eightfold Path. And when I see this in the teachings of the Buddha, and this is most of the suttas, you can see that. It's just remarkable that the Buddha understood the Dhamma leading to awakening, but he knew every single pitfall along the way.
Right, and pitfalls are many things, but the 5 clinging aggregates, the hindrance, sense gates,
Yes.
all those things.
Yeah, and the Buddha starts the sutta with pointing out the nature of suffering is through that personal experience of 5 clinging aggregates, which are in themselves impermanent.
Is he also talking about development, talking about the 7 factors?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and in that way, it really relates to the Satipatthana and the Anapanasati Sutta.
I mean, I saw this. It's almost like a 4th foundation.
Right in it, right there. The 4 foundations are being mindful of the breath in the body, feelings arising and passing away, and the resulting quality of mind from either not reacting to that process or reacting and affecting the quality of our mind. And so this understanding, again, it's not something that we take on faith. It's not something that is given to us because we're doing enough prostrations or saying enough prayers or anything like that. It's to be developed through direct experience.
I was just going to say, I was making the connection that it's the personal experience revealing to phenomena.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Bring something personal. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything comes back to right view or recognition of wrong view.
Yes, and it's also a reminder that we awaken within the plane of existence that we live in. And the reason why I say that is a lot, even during the Buddha's time, enlightenment was taught about something that is extra physical or maybe in a future lifetime. The Buddha says an understanding of phenomena takes place within phenomena. An understanding of the 3 marks takes place within that, the 3 marks of existence. Frank or Eric, what do you?
Yeah, I was just going to make one more comment about that, but Gary had already made that comment about the experience of phenomena, and I think it's like, just like the word dukkha, very personal experience, like on how you experience pain and suffering or life, from the little tiny things to the big things. It's like that perspective, what it is the phenomena that's created through your senses.
Yes.
It's something that's intangible, but once it's realized, it's like that moment of realization. What you do with that phenomena. Do you understand where it's coming from, or do you continue ignorance?
Yep.
And that is like the difference of feeling the release of it, or continuing in dukkha.
Yes, and that's really the choice that we have in each moment, to recognize that. It's the potential that each moment has to recognize the nature of suffering, understand it, and abandon the ignorance that gives rise to a reactive mind, and remain at peace. As the Buddha describes in this sutta and often, the quality of an awakened mind, the fully mature human mind, is calm, resting in equanimity. And every one of us can understand that it's possible to develop that type of mind, because we experience it every time we meditate, even if it's just for a few moments. So we know it's part of us. Again, the Buddha taught a human Dhamma. He taught it for human beings to take to it and awaken. And he wasn't concerned about, in fact, he rejected any teaching that didn't directly relate to human awakening. And it's so incredibly pure in that way. Even during the Buddha's time, there was a constant push to adapt, accommodate, and embellish his Dhamma to make it something else. And the Buddha continued to refuse that in different ways. Sometimes it was direct, and sometimes it was just by the example of the Buddha just sitting peacefully. This is the Dhamma. Ron, good to see you tonight.
Good to see everybody. I don't think I have much to add.
Glad you're here. Lorna, did this become a little more clear?
It seemed to be all over the place. And not delivering one specific teaching of the Dharma. It seemed to be like bullet points all over the place. So it was a little bit confusing. listen to, and I'm sure do it again and again and again, and it will become more clearer.
Yeah.
I have to say thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here tonight. Matt, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Is form permanent or impermanent? Feelings permanent or impermanent? Perceptions permanent or impermanent? Mental fabrication permanent or impermanent? Consciousness permanent or impermanent? It's
Impermanent, Master.
impermanent. So this thing that's experiencing suffering, which is what the Buddha is directly addressing. This thing that we think we are, that's experiencing suffering, confusion, delusion, ignorance, is impermanent. So I like how it ties in Untitled Sutta, it ties in all of the things that really make up the path, which is an understanding of the Four Noble Truths, which includes the three marks of existence, and the way to practice that understanding, which is the Eightfold Path.
Yeah.
So, I like this. Lesson.
Yeah, I think that the important takeaway from this, what could be a rather confusing sutta, is the reference to the path of awakening, the Eightfold Path. That's really the point of it. If you want to get through all this, these four experiences with phenomena correctly, it's through the Eightfold Path that we do it. The important part of the teaching. And the Untitled Sutta Matt just mentioned, the Buddha teaches that if it's impermanence, how could it be a self? Most people don't even want to think about that because it does directly relate to our wrong views. But if it's impermanent, how can you use that to anything, any impermanent phenomena, to describe a self, a permanent self? And in the Bahia Sutta, the Buddha says, when for you there's no you here, there, or anywhere, then for you there'll be awakening. You'll have understanding. When you stop projecting yourself here, there. And think about that. I can think of myself as I pulled into the parking lot tonight. But just because it's a memory, it's not me, is it? It's not. It's a thought pattern that is in itself impermanent. The fact that it was based on some type of physical, we can really get into quantum physics here, but the fact that it's really based on some type of physical reality doesn't make the thought real. The thought is still just an impermanent thought based on an occurrence. And maybe that occurrence was, maybe I was upset about something and I could still be carrying that with me today. Again, just to make a point, it's impermanent. If it's impermanent, how could it be me? It's not me. That's not me. And who I think I might be in the next moment isn't me either. The only way that I can have an experience of me is to abandon all views rooted in ignorance and be present with my life as my life unfolds. And in that moment, there is no stress. There's only calm and peace. And it's the preoccupation with dukkha that takes us out of the moment. That there's just to tie in the third mark of existence. Thank you, Matt. David, good to see you tonight.
It just tells me there's work done each time that I have an opportunity to sit. There's sloth and tutor. I think I'm tranquil. Is that actually sloth? Too relaxed, and I'm not. That full of my truly see it at that moment when it rises. So it's work to be done. It's a serious practice.
Yeah.
It's not what I bargained for. Absolutely. I did not bargain for it.
Yeah, no idea, did you?
No.
But you're glad you found it.
It's they have a really bad PR because it's so torn.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. I think it's time to. I think it's time to maybe we'll do this Tuesday. Something to cue, but the Bhattacharya Sutta, an auspicious day, because the whole sutta is about any day is an auspicious day when we get an opportunity to develop the Dhamma, develop that type of mind. Mary, good to see you.
Oh, good to see you. Good to great students, filled with everything. The metaphor of all who reside here, and this as your pattern for living, is clear. Not easy, but it's clear. I thought of, Jen's, things that interfere with you experiencing right now, the things that are unfolding right now. So using that, and I've said it before, instead of me like crashing through the 6 gates and passing through, cleaning aggregates and all of that, to be over here in justification, going on to something. It's really about catching it over here, about so much awareness about the phenomena that you are, aware of your body and your reactions and all these things, so you're catching them so much earlier, so that you're remaining in right view and you're staying aligned with your intention. If every day and every moment your intention is to awaken versus to continue clinging and craving, for me, it's about catching those things earlier, so that I'm not, 0 to 120, way over in this other space, off the path, not with right view, no intention of awakening, etc. And so it brought that visual that Jen brought up once, and that Lorna added to, and it also speaks to the spaciousness that is when you are in right view. Right view could be like, everything, like this huge, I imagine it to be.
Yeah.
But so many days, it's either just like what's in our, our viewfinder, or what's out that window, like it might be a different shape when it's really beyond your peripheral vision. So I just find it helpful to have the guideposts to either prevent you from passing through all that without seeing what you're doing, or quickly recognizing and getting back. In order to reside peacefully in that metaphor of living with different people and living in the phenomenal world.
Yeah, and that's a development of concentration that allows you to catch it earlier.
Can't be done without practice.
Yeah, I think that what Jen was saying, that ignorance requires time or a timeline, and it does. Timeline is something that was past to future and sometimes future to past. But an awakened mind, a spacious mind that you described, there's no timeline. You're just simply present with life occurring. It doesn't mean you can't make your doctor's appointment tomorrow at 4:00, but you don't have. That's something else. That's a practical way of living in the world. But you're not preoccupied or distracted by the arising and passing away. Simply present. And I think that was on retreat. What Lorna said right after that is that there's no aging to an awakened mind. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And that to people that don't understand the Dhamma, that's of course you age, don't you? You have to age, but it's not a preoccupation. You're simply present, and then at some point you're not. I mean, really, that's what this is. It doesn't mean we stop aging. There's such a misunderstanding of what the Buddha called the deathless state. It doesn't mean we live forever. basically means we're simply not preoccupied with it. And we understand the process. It simply is a consequence of having a human life.
Well, even what you just said is nicely stated, different than what I said. Like what you just said is without the timeline. Like there's a nuance to what you just said that could just like put a little more shine on that and a little more clarity to tie it back to what we're talking about, I think.
I think you did pretty good too.
Thank
you,
Thank
Mary.
you for what you said. That was very helpful.
Thank you. Mary Beth, so nice to see you. It's great that you can join us when you can.
Good to be here. There were times when the detailed conversation was going on, really my mind's processing all that, and that's not really where I'm at right now. But what's been really occurring to me, kind of even after, a few years of being in this practice and studying the conversation, is getting and trying to re-get and come back to this basic, we're meditating to develop concentration. And not just that's a thing to know, but really more and more getting the lack of concentration, just day, every minute of day that there is for me that I go through, and how little I'm really deciding what I'm focusing my mind on.
Yeah.
And it's it kind of but that awareness at least feels like a starting place.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Thank you. Just to understand that meditation within the Dhamma is for concentration and not anything else.
And
Keeps
then-
it focused.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I'm realizing now, when we're actually sitting, I think it's at the end, you say, notice the quality of your mind.
Be at peace with your mind.
Be at peace with your mind, but you notice the quality, you say that too, right?
Yep.
Notice the quality of your mind, be at peace with your mind. So just that noticing the quality of mind,
That's so important, Mary Beth. That relates to the fourth foundation of mindfulness. In other words, we go through in our meditation sessions, the guide in my verbal part is to notice the arising and passing away of feelings and thoughts. That's the second and third foundation of mindfulness, and then it concludes with the quality of our mind, and then be at peace with our mind. So ultimately, we learn through the Dhamma, in the way that I phrase it, is to be at peace with less than peaceful mind states, which means that no matter what's occurring in the world or within ourselves, because we have developed a well-concentrated mind supporting that refined mindfulness, we simply stay present. We don't need what's occurring to be any different than it is. We don't need it. We don't take anything personal. This is not me. This is not mine. This is not who I am. The teachings on anatta. Mind. And this isn't something, again, getting back to the theme, this is not something that is beyond us. Any human being is capable of developing this quality of concentration and refined mindfulness. The Dhamma, this sutta talks about it. Glad you're here. Kevin, good to see you. Where you been?
Nice to be here. Thanks for this talk. Ram said I don't know if there's I have that.
I'm so glad you're here. Mary Beth, it's 25 after 8. I know you said you had to leave early, so. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm not trying to get you out the door. Bonnie, good to see you tonight.
So, as a lot of these, the pillars of the Dharma kind of loop around, what keeps rolling around my head today is attachment, and I can let things fall away if I can understand how I'm attached to them to keep moving past. And so I think that clinging and attachment to things
Yes.
So the Eightfold Path, keep looping around, like it is, it's just like these big Mobius loops that just, Mobius strips that keep looping around, and I think it's like such a good path to follow in your head to recreate the kind of, if you're gonna fabricate, stop fabricating and stop attaching, so then follow this loop in terms of what's the view, my intention,
Yeah.
how can I speak to this, and so forth, so that maybe let go of the grip or that's what I think.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's it. You know, what the Buddha is referring to is a direct experience and profound wisdom of knowing what to abandon. Is just that, clinging to wrong views, ignorance of Four Noble Truths, and because they always create stress and further confusion. And to have that, you explained it much more simply than I just did. Just know what it is, let go of it. Mary Beth, take care. So good to see you. That's okay. Glad you made it. You know, the second noble truth said the craving originates in clinging, perpetuates suffering. It's craving that begins the development of fabrications and the continuance of views rooted in ignorance, and clinging to those views is what continues suffering. So thank you for bringing that here tonight. Liz, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you. It's really good to hear. I don't have anything to add. I've really enjoyed just listening.
I did too. Thank you, Liz. Glad you're here. Eric, good to see you tonight. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. You know, being present in every moment is hard.
Yeah.
You know, and it's definitely a practice every day. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Knowing that the poison sumac I have is impermanent.
Yeah.
More powerful.
That's good. There are very practical applications of impermanence. And that's one of them. I'm glad you're here tonight. Frank, good to see you. How are you?
Good to be here. Good to see you, John, everybody. Yeah, I like the sutta just for the fact that it has refuge in it. I love the Dhamma because I agree with everything that was said tonight, and it's like more than I bargained for too. And it's like I can't move away from it because I have so much freedom from it. Because how could you live in the present moment without feeling unbound to the present moment? Like being caught up in the present moment and being attached to everything that you hold dear in every present moment would drive anyone insane. But being able to live free in every single moment is beautiful. And having that phenomena to experience that, and not, you know, the only explanation is understanding, right view. And, you know, there's a sutta that you taught that I kind of go to all the time when I have a thought arise that is unskillful, you know, and I think it's like the relaxation of thought sutta. Yeah. When a thought comes up that's unskillful, it's like, hey, I'm talking to myself about this phenomenon that's going to happen. Like, this isn't a skillful thought. All right, this is going to lead, and then the thought still comes at me. And I'm like, okay, well, the thought's still coming at me, and you know what's going to happen. This is going to happen. And then the thought still comes at me. And then I'm like, okay, well, these mental fabrications, this is what it is. And it's like I'm having this conversation with myself before I really feel the final release and the relaxation of all that thought. And that thought to do that and the teachings and what you do for everyone here and simplicity of it. I like it.
Yeah, I do too. It's worth all the right effort, isn't it? And you were referring to the Vitaka Santana Sutta, which is a sutta we taught on Saturday. And so I don't know if you picked that up. There's another recording of that. And then,
you just taught that?
Yeah.
I didn't even
Yeah.
listen to it.
We had a really good class on that. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really get a chance to listen to Saturdays.
Yeah, it's on the website. Both the audio and the video are up there. So, yeah, it was a great discussion that really got down to the basics of what we're dealing with. Ultimately, is our thoughts and the way that we think. Right view, wrong view.
Yeah, for me, it's always about what I think, and sometimes I can't help what I think, and,
Yeah.
and it comes to me from that direct contact, that direct experience, and then what do I do with it? In that moment, I have to be able to do something with it, or I'm not living a life of ease. And that's the phenomena that I have to experience, the direct experience. And life is so much easier when you know what to do with it.
Yeah, and as a Buddha says in that sutta, you gain the ability to think what you want to think when you want to think it. Think about that. I mean, imagine having a mind that can do that. Well, you can.
Mastery of thought.
Yeah.
I really took
Or a
that.
mind
And-
that has the concentration.
Yeah, well, and why wouldn't we be able to do that unless there's something, not something wrong with us, unless we're missing something, unless we're ignorant of something, ignorant of Four Noble Truths, we can't do that. But when we gain the ability, when we understand who we are in relation to the world, of course we can think what we want to think when we want to think it. Why? Simply because we're present now with life. There's no big mystery with what's occurring right now. The mystery is only in what we're dragging around with us and why, and where we're letting that take us to.
So there's one other thing that I realized the other day. It's like sometimes I used to get up in the morning and go through my day, like try to avoid things like, I don't want to go there. I don't have to deal with that guy. Or, I don't really want to, go there. And now it's like, I don't know, it's not like that anymore. It's like my whole entire life from the moment that I wake up is like kind of like, I'm not gonna say fun game, but it's more like the path. It's like the whole thing. Like what can I do with that today? I mean, like how can I turn this out to be something positive today? And it includes other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just different. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. What you're describing is the practical application of a life that has integrated the Eightfold Path. That's how it is. It's just simply more peaceful, and because it's more peaceful and we're more present, it's really more practically enjoyable. Lorna had her hand up with it.
Sister Mary said the mastery of thought. Talked about some stuff. The only way you can do that is also to be gentle with yourself at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you just hang on to it.
Yeah.
So the gentleness that we hold to ourselves is also an important part. Not very often
Right
spoken
speech.
about.
Yeah,
But
especially
it's
yeah.
also an important part of the practice. Gentle with yourself.
And those last
Thank-
instructions that you always get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, yeah, because that's helped me a lot too.
Yeah.
Because I tend to, things get frustrating in my meditation. I tend to,
No.
Yeah.
hold on to it.
And it's just
that last instruction, even though I don't listen to it in my meditation here. And now I am like, when I start my meditation, what's the quality of my mind? The quality of my mind is the quality of my mind.
yeah.
Let's get on with the day.
Right.
The quality of your mind is impermanent, and Sutta sort of speaks to that. You check in with the Eightfold Path to
Yeah.
provide that equanimity when called upon, when needed.
Yeah.
When you're not on the path, when you're having self-talk or speaking when maybe it's not correct or past there for you to check back in. It's almost like this group home is the mind, and all these different ways we experience life is the mind. It's all residing here. It's just more than like David said, it's more than we ask for. It requires constant vigilance to check back in with this. It really does.
Yeah.
Every moment, something shark infested waters or whatever metaphor you want to apply it to, mindfulness can be compromised.
Yeah. Wow. And so that the mind in that way is the Dhamma. Where else would it exist? And so as we develop the framework of the Eightfold Path, we learn to see things clearly. We develop right view. And what Lorna brought up is so important. That's why I say it all the time. And I learned it from direct experience. I used to beat the hell out of myself in an older meditation practice because I wasn't getting it. Well, I didn't have the framework for one thing to get. I didn't have the right meditation method. But anytime we're judging ourselves harshly, we've literally lost our minds. Why would we do it? Why would a mind that is resting in understanding judge its own mind in any harsh way? It might, and this sutta speaks to that too. When you recognize through direct experience something rooted in ignorance, what do you do with it? You don't give yourself 50 lashes. You abandon it. You let it go. That's the essence of being gentle with ourselves. Another word for that might be not taking ourselves so personal. Liz, you had a question.
Not a question, I was just gonna say that whenever I find myself in a situation where I'm saying to myself, if peace were the less than peaceful mind state, I sort of turn it on I turn the whole idea of being able to think what you want to think, what you want to think, and to me the answer is think about the Dhamma. So thinking about the Dhamma is thinking about what you want to think when you want to think.
Yes. And that's the essence. That's how the Buddha taught right mindfulness is to be mindful of the Eightfold Path in whatever appropriate. That's an auspicious day, is to develop the Eightfold Path. And we have it here. Great. You want? Well, we can. If you want to stay for meta, we'll do it right now. I understand if you got to go, but and just one quick announcement. Only gonna take a minute. Our retreat begins 2 weeks from Thursday. If you haven't yet paid for your room, please do so as soon as possible because it helps me out a lot. That's it. So thank you, folks, for joining online. No questions. We'll finish as we always do with the Metta Sutta. So again, find your relaxed meditation posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths, and become mindful of the sensation of breathing in your body, your in-breath and your out-breath. These are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace.